My guest today is writer-director Wendi Tang. Now, her work focuses on character-driven stories that explore various corners of female narratives. Now, her short films have been selected by numerous Oscar-qualifying film festivals worldwide, including Flickr's Rhode Island International Film Festival, the Norwegian Short Film Festival, deadCenter Film Festival, even HollyShorts, and so many more. Now, she is a 2022 NYC Women's Fund winner and a BAFTA Connect member, and she's currently developing her first feature film. Now, Wendi Tang's stunning new short, FISHTANK, follows Jules, portrayed by actress Tiffany Chu, a Chinese-American woman who has been sober for a year but can't stop vomiting goldfish. Now, things take an unexpected turn when she suddenly meets a fish enthusiast. But this surreal drama combines traditional narrative with experimental elements to challenge audiences' understanding of the norms ingrained in society. Now, FISHTANK is the Tribeca Women Filmmakers Program winner, the Film Pipeline Short Script Competition winner in 2022, and the film will screen at the upcoming Oscar qualifying, again, Flickr's Rhode Island International Film Festival and HollyShorts Film Festival as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome writer-director Wendi Tang and her, well, unusual and very cinematic FISHTANK with us today. And Wendi, it's great to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about my film, and I'm really glad you like it.
Well, I have to give you somewhat of a very weird compliment about your film. So, first of all, I want to thank you for making it not make any sense. That's a compliment. And
I love that.
and this has got to be one of the most imaginative short films I have seen in quite a long time. So I thank you for that. But how did you come up with such a story?
That's a great question. It might sound a little bizarre, just like how my story feels like, but the original idea actually came from one of my dreams. Like I always have those like really wild dreams when I'm sleeping. I don't know why, but but those dreams have given me a lot of thoughts and like inspirations. Like this one, for example, when I was dreaming, I was literally standing in like the middle of a hot desert with no one else and nothing else. And like suddenly I felt like vomiting. I was like, oh no, I'm throwing up in a dream. That's weird. And then before I can react, I felt that there's a little goldfish landing on my palm. So, and I woke up. That scene, that frame in my dream just like woke me up. I was like, oh, I gotta write this down. This means something to me. So that comes the idea. And in the following days after that dream, I really delved deep into my life, basically, trying to figure out what the connections are and how this dream might help me connect the dots of some of the confusions and some of the anger, some of the sadness that I've been having. And so there comes the story.
Well, I want to break this up in two narratives.
Yes.
One, the traditional narratives that I noticed were sobriety. There were AA meetings, loss of control, being controlled, insecurity, and vulnerability. Why did you choose those traditional narratives?
Um, those the themes you mentioned, they're actually very like emotionally true to my life. I didn't go through like I didn't go through the whole addiction myself, but I do have friends and my family. Some of my family, they have like similar, you know, issues that they've dealt with. So I took that inspiration. And in terms of the control, for myself, I always feel that I always feel that I want to keep everything in control, but I keep failing. So that's like a feeling that I've been having. And so I want to turn that into a relatable story that everyone can understand. So they can, through the story, I get to plant, more interesting elements into that and let them know what I really want to talk about.
Well, then you had the experimental narratives, which this was for me, it was really having to study this film a little deeper. As quirky as this film is, there is some very serious overtones in this film. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I say quirky, I don't mean comedy. Okay. And you'll know when you see it. So if you go to HollyShorts or Rhode Island Film Festival, you have to sit down and see this film. But the experimental narratives is the vomiting of the goldfish. Now, I'm not going to give away the ending, but I love the twist, by the way. But why the goldfish? I mean, I know you said it was in your dream. For you, does the goldfish represent something?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh, my earbuds dropped. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I was not allowed to have any pets because my parents, they didn't like any furry animals and they didn't like dogs or cats. So the only animal that I got to, like pets that I got to have, was goldfish. And a lot of the times, like because I'm the only child, so when my parents are not home, when it's summer, when it's holiday, a lot of the times I just I spend the time with my goldfish. And like compared to what other people say, because like in Asian culture, there are a lot of people that are saying goldfish is they're representing like prosperity, they're representing luck. But for me, when I recall the times when I spent with my goldfish, a lot of the emotions that I had was isolation and was sadness. And there's also a saying that goldfish can only remember 7 seconds of things. that just makes me sad. That the goldfish that I spend time with, they'll never know me, and they have a really short lifespan. So it's really that feeling that kind of, as I grew up, it made me feel that I myself, as an Asian woman in the society, sometimes I feel like a goldfish as well. Like I've been trapped behind a glass, and there are food that's like tossed to us, and we have to fight against each other for those. So it was that feeling that I want to really subvert the traditional, meaning of goldfish to kind of like represent the current scenario that a lot of women are under.
Okay, then now you open up a new question for me then. Because in the film, there are various different types of goldfish. And did that represent different women, or did it represent different Asian communities?
I would say those represent different levels of emotions. Yes, because you'll see, yeah, you'll see some goldfish are really common that you get to see every day, but some of those are actually really rare, and they're like really beautiful and expensive. So that represents like the level, the strong, like how strong the emotions are when you're reacting to something.
Yeah, because when I noticed, of course, the lead character, Jules, played by Tiffany Chu, so she's vomiting goldfish. She doesn't know why. She goes to the AA meetings, but meets a young man who is a fish enthusiast. So when she invited him over to see her goldfish, he was impressed, and in some weird way gave her a sense of being valued. Did I interpret that correctly?
That was correct.
Because I saw the look on her face when he said, you have some here that I can't get. Like he was impressed, like they were out of reach for him, because I used to have fish, and we used to have different types of fish, and you walk into one of those fisheries and you're like, oh yeah, that, you know, so you get some fish and didn't cost hardly anything, and then you're looking at other fish like I need to save up for that because
Yeah,
they're expensive.
exactly.
So she had some very unusual, very expensive fish because of the way that he reacted. So
Yeah, it
and
was
that
very
and yeah, because
in
that
that
look on her
scene.
face, that look on her
Yeah,
face where she just she has this beautiful smile that comes across her face like, wow, he was impressed, but it made her feel good.
yeah, because I think for the main character for Jules, what she's been always looking for is like genuine connection. So she's very active in terms of making the connections with other people. Like she's not evasive. She's not, even though she has a lot of things going on in her life, she still want to like connect with other people. She still want those relationships. So I think that's what made this character um, very very human, I would say. Like because we all know like we all want connections, and I think that's a really valid desire that every one of us gets to have. And she also takes the consequences.
Well, and that was the thing about this character Matt. So he can he lets her know after the AA meeting that he's
Hmm.
a marine biologist,
Yeah.
but he becomes somewhat controlling. I found that he had a really creepy vibe about him. Um, not really. I'm not really sure why I had the feeling at the very beginning. You know,
That's
because
a good.
I'm looking at through Jules's eyes, sitting in the AA meeting, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be friends with him. And so he had this vibe about him, but then when he went over to her place, I'm like, yeah, there's just something really creepy about him. But it was the whole scenario where when they're together, didn't he feel that he could replace her goldfish with himself, thus forcing her to change her dependence from fish to him?
I would say for the character of Matt, I don't think he really thinks that much when he first meets Jules. From his point of view, because I'm glad you picked up the character's undertone, because that's what we intended, because we wanted to see everything from Jules' eyes and to really feel what Jules is feeling. And sometimes like you sometimes when you meet someone and when you really feel like there's a possibility between you, you kind of choose to ignore those signs or those initial
The
feelings.
red flags.
They're red flags, yes, but they ultimately will come back and remind you. So that's like that's also from my own experience. Because when I first meet someone, I always think of them as the best person in the world. So and the reality often like just knocks me in the head.
Well, I think that when he told her
Hmm.
that she had fish that were very valuable and it made her feel good. I think that's when he went in and in a way took emotional advantage of her. And she opened, but she was the one that opened the door.
Yeah, she's the one that opened the door, and but I feel like Matt is kind of like represents from a woman's point of view, like a lot of man
Mm-hmm.
that I meet every day. It's like everyday man. Like their initial intention might not be, bad, but the way they're doing things are actually, like you say, they're emotionally taking advantage of, uh, you know, the other person, and sometimes it happens really in a very subtle way that you don't realize right away when you see those things happen. Like they often come back later and be like, oh yeah, he did that. They did that before. So yeah, it's just very, to me, it's like very emotionally true to my life. But so also want to like share it with the audience, that who shared a similar experience.
Yeah, the thing that I noticed was and I'll add, and this is directed for you with this film. Does Jules feel that she is trapped with Matt in somewhat the same way as she was trapped by her alcohol addiction?
I would say that's a very interesting question. I would say Jules, it's compared to trapped by Matt, she's more trapped by her life. Yeah, because Matt is like only a piece of her life. Like the overall things that she's going through, and she's hopping between gigs and um a lot of different things she does every day. Like she's trying to find a purpose, and through the process she also wants to regain her power because of the loss of control that she had when she had the addiction. So I think the process is also of her regaining, reclaiming her voice and her power.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's weird because when when she literally opened up the emotional door, I was like, no, too soon. You know, because it's not like this is a streaming series where you're waiting for the next episode. But I love the way that you created this story, because it has elements of like, no, don't move too fast, because it's almost like the audience is talking to Jules. It's like, no, don't
Yeah.
do that, you know, because, you know, in a way, everybody wants to either be liked or everybody wants to be loved,
Yeah.
and she showed that, you know, but he was still creepy. and and so I was just like, oh my goodness. But now I'm not going to give any spoilers about this film. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a film, that a short film that you have to see on for many different reasons. Okay. The story, as quirky as it is, it makes a little more sense now, Wendy.
I'm glad.
You
I'm
know,
glad.
it's starting to make a little bit more sense. And but I'm not going to give any spoilers on this, but everybody needs to see this. But while you're filming the short film, what was harder to do? Get all the fish for the film or cast it?
That's a great question. I like before I shot the film, I thought I thought the goldfish was gonna be the most difficult part. I thought it was gonna be the most difficult part, but through the process, we got really lucky. We collaborated with the fish wrangler in Hollywood. There's that person. Shout out to Mark. uh, yeah, so he helped us with all the goldfish. So we rented all the goldfish from him, and he taught us how to like take care of them, how to maintain a good, water quality for them. And yeah, so it was actually kind of smooth with the fish. Yeah, but the most difficult part that throughout the process was another very specific scene later in the movie that we explored a lot of different ways of achieving that scene, and that took us months, and we wrote letters, like we wrote emails to a lot of different people for advice, and then we ended up with that one method, and for that one shot we did it for a whole day. So that ended up being the most difficult shot of the film.
I know what you're saying. I'm not going to give it
Yes.
away,
Yes.
because I was sitting there as I was watching. I'm like, how did they do it? Because I know what it takes to set up a fish tank. And, sometimes depending on the fish that you're bringing in, it can take a couple of days or take a week to really get the water set up correctly. So when the fish get in it, they can just start being fish. And, so you don't have to worry about killing them. So there is a prep time involved. But I know what scene you're talking about. So ladies and gentlemen, there are two scenes in this film that we're not going to give away. But I know which one you're talking about because, yeah, my thought was, how did she pull that off? And so if this film becomes Oscar qualified, then we're going to talk about how you pulled that off.
Yes. Yes. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Now, how did you cast Tiffany and Isaac?
Yes. Originally I had the script ready after the Tribeca win. And I wanted to find someone who not only likes the story, the quirkiness, but also that they can connect to the character. So I went through a very extensive casting process. When I saw Tiffany's work in her previous movies, like the features and some of the shorts, and I feel like a very like to be completely honest, for those movies, she did a very great job. But I feel like she could go a little further. That's my initial feeling. So I contacted her through my casting director, and we got to Zoom for 2 hours. Our first meet was on Zoom, and we Zoomed for 2 hours. We talked about a script. We talked about our lives. We talked about a lot of very deep and like hidden feelings that make me feel like she really understands the character. So I went with her without doubt.
Well, yeah, because what I was watching when I was watching the film, she shows, because there's that, you know, it's not a film with heavy dialogue. It has enough dialogue so you know what's going on. You pick up the emotional vibes of the scenes, but she comes across very vulnerable and almost in a very quiet way, but you can feel it on film. You can see it in her facial expressions. You can see it in her eyes. And to me, with acting is not always dialogue. It's movement. It's what the eyes are portraying. And she does a stellar job. I mean, did she like the quirkiness of the script?
I believe so, because we talked about it a lot. And she loved how quirky, how weird the idea is, but how the ideas, like, they come to the ground, how they really blend seamlessly to the story.
Yeah, exactly. Now, how did you cast Isaac?
Yeah, we actually went through another extensive search for actors, and we did auditions, we did chemistry read, and we landed with Isaac because for me he has the feeling like he has the very special skill to shift between like good and evil with like just one facial expression.
And so that's not easy to do.
That's not easy to do. Yeah.
He did it perfectly.
When I first saw his reel, like in his reel, there were a lot of very nice portrayal of those characters, and you know he plays a nice guy, a very cute guy. But I remember in one of the videos, he kind of like tilted down his head a little bit, and it feels completely different. I was like, that's what I want.
Well, I would say you nailed the casting on this one.
Thank you.
But you've got to tell me about the cinematography, because you didn't go with the clear, focused cinematic look, but what appears to be handheld camera movement, but also the focus goes in and out, giving the whole film its very own unique look, which I actually liked very much. Now, I understand that Jay Suin is your cinematographer?
Yeah. Jay is my good friend and the cinematographer of this short. And it was very interesting because Jay boarded the project actually quite late in the process. We had a lot of like different other difficulties in terms of crewing up. But Jay loved the story. I approached him. I saw his work online. I approached him, and he loved the story. So we started to work together. Yeah, it was actually it was easier than I thought. Like in terms of onboarding a cinematographer, because we both love the story, we both love the concept, and we are willing to spend time to really analyze what kind of visual language this film can have. So yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned all the handhelds and the focus. I would say all of them, most of them are intentional. There were one or two that were kind of unintentional, but they created great effects. But yeah, most of them are intentional because we wanted to show the how Jules feels about her world. It's not completely stable. It's not like, it's not everything's in place and she's losing control.
Yeah,
so we want to create that feeling through the cinematography.
And you did, even down to the coloring. Because I was looking at the film, I'm like, okay, definitely a colorist is involved, but I noticed something, and maybe it's just me. When both Jules and Matt were in her apartment, and they're talking about her fish, when the camera is looking at the tank, you see the brightness. Because we know fish tanks have the above light. So it's going to be very bright. You're going to be able to see the colors of the goldfish and see what different types there are. But then when you're focused on Jules or Matt, you have this whole different look. It's no longer bright. It's almost, the cinematography, it's almost muted in a way. But because of that, the changes in focus, and then with the muted lighting and coloring, I was like, this is why your film stands out, because everybody is going to the full-blown cinematic look, and everything is pretty and crystal clear. But then here comes FISHTANK that shows up in the middle of all of these films. And it stands out because you went a whole different route with the cinematography.
Yeah. I think I talked to Jay about the approach that we took to cinematography. We wanted to maintain like the rawness of cinema that we don't get to see too often these days. So like I believe the cinematography, like you see how powerful, how raw those shots are, and you get to feel it. It's another way that you get to connect with the character, to feel how she feels. Her life is not pretty. Her life is not stable and good or pretty. It's unstable and it's full of chaos, and I wanted to show that through the cinematography. So I'm really glad you picked up that.
And you did, but you also. And also what I loved about, and part of the storytelling, it's like, I always say 50% acting, 50% camera work. But there are shots of Jules where you framed her really close. In a way, not only do we pick up her emotion, but we have a feeling as an audience to feel a little bit trapped, like she's feeling.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, that's just spot on camera work.
Yeah, because we, in my pitch of the film, when I was pitching it to Tribeca, I said I don't want the audience to walk away too comfortable after watching the film. So I'm glad I gave you that feeling.
Well, for you, what have been some of the most common questions that you've received from those who've actually seen FISHTANK?
They've asked a lot about the ending.
We're not giving that away. Oh my!
Yeah, we're not giving that away here.
I will tell you this. I'm not going to say a word about the ending, but when I saw the ending, my thought was this: do not create this as a feature film. I want to see this as a streaming series because the way you did the ending, I'm thinking Jules just gained some superpowers. Because because as weird and quirky as this film, I'm thinking she goes from a vulnerable woman to someone who is not going to take any crap anymore.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
So I could see this. I could see the storyline being built for a streaming series because that way you can, because I would want to see, because see, everybody knows, most people who can watch a streaming series and hopefully they watch it, I guess, hopefully like I would watch it. We always know that the first, second, and even third episodes are character building. You're building the characters. You're showing, maybe some of their background, their present day, maybe their hang-ups, or maybe their addictions, or their bad habits, or whatever it is. And then you slowly start wrapping that story around all this character building. And when I see Fish Tank, I'm like, if this was a streaming series, I would watch it.
I'm really glad. Okay. If anyone's interested, contact me.
I mean, so like after you finished the film and you saw it after it came out of post-production, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts. I had oh, sorry, I dropped again. I had a very bittersweet feeling when I finished the post-production of it. Because I always feel like every time I make a film is like giving birth to a baby to me. Like I poured all of my heart, my blood, my money also into it. And the moment it picture locks, the moment it hits the final delivery, it becomes kind of out of my hand. Like I hand it to the world and I leave it, I present it to the world and they get to decide, they get to see the film and have their own thoughts, have their own opinions. And those moments really are a little bit like, it's like sending your kid to college kind of. Even though I don't have that experience myself yet, but that was, yeah. So I of course I wanted to do well, but I also understand that everyone has a different perspective. They have different, history, different culture backgrounds. So after that, what I was more excited was to see people's reaction, people's feedback on the film. Because when it was screening in deadCenter Film Festival, we got some really good questions and feedbacks, and those moments kind of like made me want to cry that people understand it, and some of them even picked up the little seeds that I planted in that I didn't expect anyone would pick it up, the first time of the watching, but they did. And that was just really heartwarming, and that made me feel like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this job.
Well, and I have to say, because you and I talked before our interview, and you have submitted this film Fish Tank to other film festivals.
Yes.
But you seem to be very strategic in your submissions. But we all know that with submissions, you're not guaranteed to be chosen. But your film has been chosen for Rhode Island, HollyShorts, and then the one in Oklahoma. Those are all Oscar qualifying. And so what's it like for you to be submitting to these top film festivals and actually getting chosen?
For me, submitting the festival is completely like a lottery. The process is just so random and uncertain. And what I could do is just to submit my best work to the festivals that I like. And because my ultimate goal through festivals is to have the films being seen by different people, by the widest audience possible. and they get to see not only the film, but also my ability to tell the story and to really connect with people that share the same vision with me. Because this is my short film, but I also, I'm working on other shorts and I'm working on feature film as well. So I really want to, it's almost like my way to connect with people, to
Well,
connect
yeah.
with
Now,
like-minded people.
okay, so as a filmmaker who understands the film festival circuit, and we all know, like you said, it's literally a lottery. You have no clue if you're going to get the email or the phone call that your film got accepted. Are you, I know some people out there, they literally just submit to like 50, 60 film festivals. Are you being very, very selective in your choices? Because it
I
sounds like
try
you
to
are.
Yeah, I try to give it the best chance. So I usually start with the top tiers, that those ones that really have like really strict premiere requirements. Because for some of the big ones, once you premiere elsewhere, you're not eligible anymore because they require world premiere or they require international premiere. So I try to strategize around that, and I do the top tiers first, and I do the Oscar qualifiers because I really want I want people to, because those festivals are where people pay more attention to. That's just a fact. And there are also a lot of great local festivals, but for a filmmaker, I wanted to choose a more efficient way for my film to be seen. So that's where I go. I went with all the Oscar qualifiers, and I'm still waiting to hear back on a bunch. And after that, I have some other festivals, those really great regional and local festivals on my list that I am going to submit. It's like planning your film's festival life, so it can travel as far as possible.
Well, how many Oscar qualifying film festivals are there?
That's a great question. I feel like there are at least for narrative live action, there are at least like 30, 20 to 30. That's just a guess. I didn't go into detail of the numbers,
I've
but
I've I've never I've never I never got an accurate count on how many
yeah,
Oscar.
and it changes every year. Actually, they have a list every year they
Yeah, because
publish
then
on
you
their
end up with
website.
like you could have a film festival that's been around for, let's say, 10 years, and then they're
Mhm.
finally given, I guess the status of, now this year we're going to be an Oscar qualifying
Yeah,
film
yeah, and it
festival.
changes. Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, for a lot of you that may not know how this works, there are over 12,000 or more short films submitted to film festivals per year. I mean, Tribeca had over 8,000 submissions, 2,000 were chosen. HollyShorts had over 6,000 submissions, only 400 were chosen. In the end, only 150 Oscar qualified films are chosen. Out of the 150, it's whittled down to the 15 for the Oscar shortlist, and then the 5 that are nominated for an Oscar. So to get to get into the first category is a big freaking deal.
Thank you. It's already
And
a milestone in my career. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, Fish Tank, wow. Again, Wendy, out of all the films I've seen so far, this one really stands out on
Thank you.
different levels. And I am so glad that you came along with this film to really just shake things up.
That's what I want to
I'm
do.
going to
Yeah.
make a film that makes no sense to no one, and I want to make it great. And you did.
Yeah, I want to make like weird but wonderful stuff. That's the goal of my career. I want to speak to people with my films, and
And
I
that's it.
want
And
to
I
challenge how they feel, how they see the world.
well, as quirky and delightfully weird as Fish Tank. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to see this film really as a streaming series because there's just so much more to explore here. But Quentin Tarantino, if you're out there and I know that you keep talking about, I'm only going to do one more film. I think you need to check out Fish Tank. This is probably up your alley in more ways than one. So, but again, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, visionary writer-director Wendi Tang's stunning, outside the box, quirky, and even a bit mysterious new short film Fish Tank follows Jules, portrayed again by actress Tiffany Chu, a Chinese-American woman who has been sober for a year but can't stop vomiting goldfish. Things take an unexpected turn when she suddenly meets Matt, who is a fish enthusiast. But this surreal drama combines traditional, like I said before, it combines traditional narratives with experimental elements to challenge an audience's understanding of the norms ingrained in society. This film will do that. But if you are a film lover, there is just so much to take in with this film in a way that this film, Fish Tank, could be used as a filmmaker's teaching tool. So if you're just a young filmmaker and you're just trying to figure out the whole deal, watch Fish Tank, because Wendi Tang breaks every rule in filmmaking and comes out, well, not smelling like a fish, smelling like a rose. Okay? But again, she broke the rules of filmmaking, or may have made the rules of her own doing, or just made them better for all of us. We need more visionaries in filmmaking like Wendi Tang. And Wendi, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing Fish Tank with us today.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. It's really nice talking to you and talking about the film.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you are attending HollyShorts, Fish Tank, if you're going to be at the Rhode Island, or the Rhode Island International Film Festival, another Oscar qualifying film festival. And since Fish Tank is appearing there as well, if you're going to that one, sit down. Make sure you see Fish Tank, because you're going to need this film to balance out all the other heavy cinematic type films out there. Because when you see them all, you're going to go, yeah, I remember Fish Tank, for multiple reasons. But there are a couple of, there's a twist. But there are two scenes in this film that are, well, neither Wendi nor I will tell you what they are. But when you see them, you're going to know exactly what we mean. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all the replays of our interviews with the top film directors like Wendi Tang, as well as producers and screenwriters and actors, and more on Bond on Cinema. So we want to thank you for watching. And as for me, well, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.